I'm Susan Shaner with Sage Leadership Strategies, LLC, and I'm your host today of Community Forum. And I have the great pleasure to introduce to you Kristen Cannon, who is a community planner with the Education Connection in Danbury. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you so much for having me on the show today.
It's great to have you. Can you tell our viewers what is the Education Connection? Because I really hadn't heard of it until recently.
Okay. Education Connection is considered to be a regional educational service center, and there are 6 of them throughout Connecticut. We primarily cover the towns in Litchfield County and some greater Danbury towns, and we provide services and supports to the 30 member districts in our catchment area.
Okay.
And so you're probably saying, well, what does that really mean?
Yeah.
We do a number of programs that enhance the quality of life for people of all ages in the community. So for instance, for infants and toddlers, Education Connection runs a Birth to 3 program called SEED. And that's a program where people go into a home and provide early intervention services for infants and toddlers who are showing delays.
Okay, so is this kind of like a Head Start thing, or?
We also operate a Head Start and an early Head Start program out of Litchfield and Torrington. We run some family resource centers in Plymouth and Torrington. We manage school readiness grants in Danbury and Torrington. And we also do services for adults, including those with disabilities. We manage some group homes and provide some community support services for them. And we also provide a lot of services for individuals and teachers in school districts.
So is this a state-funded agency?
We do receive a significant portion of funding from the State Department of Education, but we also survive off of many different grants.
So you're a nonprofit, is that how you're
That's correct.
Okay. And so your role there is community planner. So the first thing I thought of, to be honest, is like community organizer. Is that something like what Obama did? But what's a community planner specifically?
Well, the role that I'm in is the one paid position on this strategic planning initiative, which is Danbury specific around early childhood.
Okay.
So my role is to help ensure that the work moves forward and that the different facets of the group work together to lead us towards the creation of our plan next summer.
So are all the programs at Community Connection focused on early childhood, or is it the whole range?
It's really the whole range.
It is, okay, up through 12th?
Actually, throughout life.
Really?
Because our group homes are for adults with disabilities. We also provide some job skills development for adults with disabilities. We do a lot of work for teachers in the public school system. So the services that we offer are both for individuals, families, and the member school districts in our area. And the job that I'm working on is a grant-funded position that's just focusing some work in Danbury on early childhood. But our agency as a whole covers all ages.
So when you say all ages, is it all ages for the general population, or you're saying all ages because after high school the focus is on adults with disabilities, or is it a broader segment of the adult population as well?
Even a broader segment of the population. We manage Foothills Education, which is the adult learning in the Litchfield County area. So that would be an example of the general adult population that we're serving.
Okay, so like as an example, when you say you service adults with disabilities, like are you affiliated with anything, organization I'm thinking of is Disabilities Beyond Disabilities? It used to be DATAR, or no, that's not, you're not affiliated with them at all?
We're not affiliated with them, but we may provide some similar services that they do.
Okay, so it's not like a competitive thing or anything? You just service different segments of the population, or you're just another agency that helps?
Exactly, another agency that's working in that area.
Okay, so How long have you been there, and how did you come to this work?
It's interesting. I've been with Education Connection for the past 6 or 8 months, but prior to that, in my previous job, I interfaced with many of the Education Connection early childhood services. So I knew a lot of the individuals, and when this job opportunity came up, it was a nice segue for me to move on to something more challenging and a little bit different.
So it sounds like you were sort of on the other side of the desk, if you will? Working for another agency?
Yes, but
Okay.
I was working and interfacing in the community at a lot of community meetings, so I knew a lot of the staff that I'm currently now working alongside of.
Okay. And so you said your role is specifically focused in on the early childhood education, so pre-kindergarten?
Really, the age range for the new 3Rs initiative would be birth through age 8.
Birth through 8. Okay. So you mentioned the 3 Rs. Can you tell us what the 3 Rs stand for?
Sure.
This is the program that you're overseeing, is that?
Correct.
Okay.
When you think of 3Rs years ago, you would have thought reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Yeah.
And now what we're looking at is saying children, in order to be successful, need a different 3 Rs. They need ready children and families, ready communities, and ready schools. And so this was the title that the Danbury community selected probably about 1.5 years or maybe even 2 years ago to title this strategic planning initiative that's happening.
Okay, so can you just give us a little more detail on each of those? So ready children and families, what does that mean?
It means that in order for children to start the kindergarten door ready, we need to be thinking about them from birth so that they are born healthy, that they're born to families that are able to do effective parenting, and their parents have the supports that they need to go about their job to help this child along the way.
So when you focus on families, is it, all families that have children, or are there particular segments of the population that you're focused in on?
Really, this would be an initiative that affects all children in Danbury. And that's a question that I commonly am asked. Well, Danbury already has a Head Start program, so why do you need to do work on helping to get children ready for school? Isn't that what Head Start does? And my response is that Head Start does that for those families that are enrolled in the Head Start program. This initiative is really a community-wide initiative. We want to make sure that all children, whether they're children that are in Head Start, in family child care, or at home with mom, with a stay-at-home mom, that all children in Danbury are ready for school. And that's what our vision is, all children ready for school.
So when you say from birth, I mean, I'm envisioning, like when I had my daughter, I had her in Danbury Hospital. And the nurses and the doctors are all very attentive when you're in the hospital, and then they discharge you, and you're not given any instructions. It's just like, see ya.
Right.
And it's like you're on your own, and you read books, you talk to friends and family, and you just have to figure it out as you go. So are you saying, do you have connections like with the hospitals as an example, as babies are born and that sort of thing?
What we're looking to do is say, what can we do here in Danbury to help as a community we reach that vision that all children are ready for school? And certainly the hospital would be a partner to connect with. All of the social service agencies, faith-based organizations, even the business community has a role to play in this process. And what we're looking to do is engage the Danbury community in helping to create a plan that the community has created and adopted to say, we know where we want to go, and this will be our roadmap to get us there.
So even some of the local daycare centers?
Sure.
Okay. So you're in the process of, what does that look like? Getting inputs, creating a forum, creating a dialogue?
Exactly.
Okay.
We have 3 basic layers to the work, so to speak. And the foundation is what we call our focus area teams. Those are groups of individuals who have either expertise or interest in a particular area, and they are going to work to create the indicators, which means how are we going to measure that we're getting closer to that vision of all children ready for school, and what are the strategies or activities that need to happen in the community to get us there. So the focus area team, they're really the worker bees that are spending a lot of time looking at research and data pertaining to what's happening in Danbury, looking at what services already exist, and also looking at research to say what's considered to be proven practices, activities that have taken place in other communities that have really showed good measurable results to lead us in that direction. We then have our steering committee, which I describe as having like a 25-mile high view and helps to make sure the left hand knows what the right hand is doing and organizes the work. And then we have our leadership group, whose responsibility is really to give some feedback about the work along the way, champion our message and get that message out to more people in the community, and help us move from just a planning initiative to being able to implement our plans by helping to secure resources.
So this initiative is fairly new.
It is.
When was this kicked off?
It would depend on how you define that. Really, the work started several years ago.
Okay.
In Connecticut, Governor Rell put together what's called the Early Childhood Cabinet, and that was a way to get state agency heads together and some other key players to determine what do we need to see happen in Connecticut to get children ready for school. And they created a document called Ready by 5 and Fine by 9, which means let's get children to kindergarten ready.
It sounds catchy. Ready by 5 and Fine by 9.
And that helps. Well, get them to the kindergarten ready at 5, and then by age 9 they're competent readers, because there's so much research that shows if children are not reading well by age 9, there's really a struggle ahead. So the governor and her group put forth a statewide plan, and then here in Danbury we look to have a local reaction. What do we want to see in our community with our community's assets and our community's needs? And that's how this process began about 2 years ago.
You know what strikes me? It seems that today the criteria to start kindergarten is very different than I was growing up many moons ago. I mean, you know, I grew up with, I have 5 brothers and sisters, so a lot of us, we had our own daycare. But by the time I got to kindergarten, honestly, I didn't even know how to write my name. I mean, I'm not stupid, I have 3 degrees, you know, but starting kindergarten, I didn't even know how to write my name. I mean, I don't know, we were running around playing. And today, it seems like there's such much higher expectations that when a child starts kindergarten, that not only would they know how to write their name, I mean, you obviously know all their numbers, letters, colors, and in some cases, depending on the school, the expectation is that they at least are starting to know how to read, or by the end of kindergarten, they're reading, which I don't remember ever knowing how to read in kindergarten. So it seems like, almost like we're now starting kindergarten, which, I don't know, when I was growing up, maybe it was like 2nd grade or something.
You're right, and a lot of teachers in the school system who've worked there for a long time would say things are different now than they were 20 years ago. And so our society, our community needs to respond to that.
And why is that, do you think?
I think it's for a number of reasons. I think part of it is some research about brain development, what children are able to learn, and a lot of it has to do with competition, global economy, and in Connecticut in particular, the CMTs. Looking to the Connecticut Mastery Test.
Yeah, so it seems like a lot of it's teaching to the test. I mean, I know there's different philosophies.
Not even necessarily teaching to the test.
Children's brains aren't even ready for this information until 7 years old.
Well, I think what the school systems are looking at is a bit more accountability and more structuring for what's happening. And
so they want to make sure the kids are doing better on the CMTs.
In part, that's certainly one factor that's come to play. But you're right, years ago, being ready for kindergarten was, you knew a little bit of ABC, some 1, 2, 3s, but we really think a lot more globally now. We think about children being ready for kindergarten because they've had some foundational experiences, whether that was in childcare or at home, at playgroups, wherever, that they're now ready to take advantage of the kindergarten opportunities. And they also really look at the whole child: health, oral health, behavioral health. It's all seen now differently than it was, let's say, 20 years ago.
I'm just wondering, I mean, just to play devil's advocate a little bit, I mean, some people would say, wow, aren't we putting too much pressure on our kids today?
And some people might...
At younger ages, yeah.
Some people might say that. I remember being at a conference one, and they talked about efficiency of teaching, that you could try to teach a 5-year-old differential equations, but it's not going to be efficient because they're not ready for that information. So it's a matter of saying, research is telling us that children may be ready for more than what we perhaps thought 20 years ago. And as long as it's presented in a way that's developmentally appropriate, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a wrong thing. But there are a lot of different views about the changes that have gone on in education.
Yeah. Okay, so now that I've challenged you on your program, but you're saying basically the focus of your program is focusing on the family, making sure the family has the supports that it needs, so a child's ready for the kindergarten. Your second R was?
Ready communities.
Ready community. So what does that look like, getting the community ready?
Getting the community ready could really look at a number of things. It could be looking at pediatric practices, that ensuring that your pediatrician not only looks at your child in terms of their medical health, but also builds in some developmental screenings along the way to help ensure that you're developing in other ways as you should for your age.
So socially,
language-wise, cognitively, correct. A ready community could also be the child care programs that exist. Are they of a quality that are going to support children the way they need to be supported?
You know, that's an interesting one because, I mean, my daughter was in daycare because, you know, I worked. And, you know, it's always striking the balance point between, which I think is what you're speaking to, how much you don't want to put undue pressure on the child, but on the other hand, you want to create a stimulating environment. And because she was in daycare, she definitely was ahead of some kids coming into kindergarten, just because of all the stimulation and different things that were going on in the daycare.
Right. And the quality in child care can really range. Someone can walk into an early childhood program and say, well, all they were doing was learning, and somebody, all they were doing was playing, and not really understand that at that age, that is how they learn.
Yeah, learn through playing.
Exactly. But what were they playing with? How were the adults helping to support the play? Were they helping to negotiate some of those social conflicts that came up? Were they challenging children with some open-ended questions? Were they ensuring that there were a variety of materials available depending on children's needs? So it really looks at a lot of different pieces.
So consciously facilitating their learning process and being deliberate about it in terms of the choice that the adult in the equation is making with the child or the children. Okay. So the first one was getting the families ready. The second one is getting the community ready, or having the community involvement. And what's the third one again?
Ready schools.
Ready schools. Okay, so what does that look like?
That looks like schools that are able to help both children and parents make a smooth adjustment from wherever they've been before hitting kindergarten to entering school. And it also means looking at the curriculum that takes place in kindergarten and ensuring that there's alignment with the curriculum that came before kindergarten.
Well, that must be a challenge because you have sort of feeders from all different avenues, from home, from daycare, from you know, probably hybrids. So how do you do that?
That's a real challenge. One that
you want a baseline coming in, right?
And you need a lot of dialogue and conversation. Typically, teachers who work in the public school system tend to attend workshops, conferences, etc., not where early childhood teachers attend workshops and conferences. It's almost like two separate worlds that we say we need to start having much more opportunities for dialogue, interfacing, and understanding where children came from is important information to help you understand where they're going to be with you, and vice versa. If you have a child as a 3-year-old in your program, having an understanding of what the expectations are in the future is going to help you in your current programming. So a lot more opportunities to exchange ideas, information, and know what the different settings are like.
So in your role, do you do a lot of presentations out in the community? Do you provide information? I mean, how do you you've got sort of these 3 constituent groups, families, community, and schools, bringing them all together?
And that's the role of the steering committee.
Okay.
Personally, I've gone out into the community, talked with many individuals, and sometimes I've been speaking with individuals who really didn't understand why I would want to talk with them when they knew that my initiative was something pertaining to early childhood. And my response is that the plan that's going to be created through this new 3R strategic planning process is a plan for the whole community to adopt. So whether you are a parent with young children or a retired person, it's a plan that's going to impact the community and everyone. We want to have an opportunity to have involvement. If you're interested, we want to provide you with an opportunity to become involved.
Okay, so earlier when you were saying this initiative's been around for a while, you mean in general, the education connection, but this particular strategic planning process, you've just recently kicked off and you're trying to nail down some sort of strategic plan over the next, what's the time horizon?
We, our funder, which is the State Department of Education and the William Casper Graustein Memorial Fund, is saying that our plan needs to be in place by June of '09.
Okay.
And Danbury is one of 24 communities across the state of Connecticut that's going through this strategic planning with support from our funder.
Okay. So the plan needs to be in place by June 2009.
It needs to be created, and then beyond that we would move into what we would call implementation. The ideas that we've put on paper, we now start working on ensuring that they happen in the community.
Okay. So what is the time frame for the plan? Like, is it a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan?
Well, that's a really interesting question, especially in light of the current economy.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we've been talking about. Things that perhaps in the past we would have thought were doable in a 3-year period. In light of the current economic situation, we might need to say, let's move that to a 5-year goal or something.
Given the anticipation of some funding being cut, or?
That it may be more difficult to secure resources.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So I think you've talked a little bit about the vision for the strategic planning process. Is there anything else that you want to add to that?
I don't think so.
Okay. And you've also talked a little bit about what's meant in terms of ready for school, but can you speak more specifically to that? What does it look like for a kindergartner to be ready?
Sure. When a child comes into the classroom, a ready child would be, number one, a child who is eager to learn, is curious about learning, and that would be a wonderful thing that a kindergarten teacher would want to see. In addition to that, a child who is ready is a child who has had many opportunities to experience books prior to coming to kindergarten and finds hearing stories and being read to as a very enjoyable activity.
Okay.
A ready child would also be a child that has some social skills, whether those are skills that happened in a family of 5 children, or skills that happened by mom taking me to playgroup, or skills that were learned in a child care situation. Having some ability to wait your turn a little bit, share sometimes.
Hard lessons for people to learn.
Yes.
No matter what age.
Being able to have some independence, being able to take off your coat, put it away, clean up your toys when you're done, some familiarity with routines and transitions so that they're able to function in a setting where that's taking place.
You know, what I'm thinking of as you're talking is, like, even with the public schools, they give you almost like a checklist. So it sounds like it's ensuring that everybody's on the same page with what their checklist, if you will.
Is sort of, and actually the State Department of Education has put out a wonderful document titled Getting Your Child Ready for Kindergarten, which is available statewide, and it gives some real specifics that families can do at home with their children to help them get ready for kindergarten. Things like talking to your child on a regular basis, having back and forth conversations, asking a lot of questions. Well, why do you think that happened? Well, what do you think might happen next in the story? Opportunities to have some math concepts. Even when parents say, I'm going to make a sandwich. First, I need to take the bread out. Next, I'm going to get the peanut butter. And the last thing I'm going to do is get the jelly.
So sequencing things and making it explicit with the child. See, I'm thinking, isn't this common sense? Don't most parents do this? But maybe not, is what you're saying. It's just ensuring that these kind of conversations are indeed happening.
Right. And for some parents, I think it does come naturally. For other parents, they learn it along the way by watching other parents or accessing resources. But there's certainly some parents where it isn't known to them, and they need some support to help them along the way.
Okay, so this document that's sponsored by the state, Getting Your Child Ready for Kindergarten, if somebody who's watching wanted to get their hands on that document, how could they do that?
They could call the State Department of Ed and the Early Childhood Department, and the phone number's in my planner to the side, or they can certainly contact me and I could give them the number as well.
So what would be your contact information for them if they want to?
They could call me at Education Connection, and my phone number there is 791-1904, and I'm at extension 178.
Okay. I may have you repeat that in a minute.
Sure.
Okay. Let me see. We're going to need to wrap up, but what are other factors that have changed in our community that make an emphasis on early childhood education important that maybe that we haven't already covered, just by way of wrap up?
I think, as I mentioned before, the brain research, we now know what I think a lot of us really felt earlier is that the early years are extremely important. The experiences that children have, the hopefully warm, loving, nurturing relationships they have as an infant, toddler, or preschooler really are so crucial for later school success, especially for children who might be at risk. So children who are living in poverty, children who are living in single-parent households, children who, by fact of some of their learning variables, really need that support. It's so important.
Okay. So it seems like the whole element around the brain research that's really come out in the forefront in the last 5 or 10 years has been around emotional intelligence and the social connections, which is what you're making reference to, which is an important component. Is that accurate?
That's definitely a part of it. But really looking at all development.
So the cognitive, the social, the emotional, and how they all interface with each other, just the whole picture, looking at the whole child.
Today I was doing a training at a local child care program about oral language development, and really saying that some children start kindergarten with a huge vocabulary, and it's easier then for them to become readers and writers. And if you're starting kindergarten with a small vocabulary, it's much more difficult.
Okay. We're going to need to end, but I'm wondering if you can give our viewers your number one more time if they want to get a hold of you and find out more information about this important initiative.
Sure. They can call me at Education Connection, and the number is 791-1904, and I'm at extension 178.
Okay, great. Kristen, thank you for taking us through your whole process.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Until next time, I'm Susan Shaner with Community Forum. Thank you very much for joining us.